Naturally, the Centre
Any,
Court MBA Festival focuses on the MBA and business schools. But I'm always fascinated in the relationship with a business school within a wider university institution. And when you think about the Judge Business School within the University of Cambridge, the sort of relationship that that generates. So I'm always delighted to welcome to Centre Court Conrad Chua. Conrad has been with Judge now for 14 years. He's the executive director of the Cambridge Judge MBA after a very impressive academic career. He's a wonderful blogger, and I encourage all of the readers to find Conrad's blogs that look not only at business education, but wider themes around business and society. And if you have any questions about football, Conrad is the man to ask. Conrad, it's lovely to welcome you to Centre Court. Executive director, and of course, you know this school so well. What do you most enjoy in the leadership role that you have at Judge?
Thanks, Matt. I think the greatest joy in my day-to-day is really working with the people. And there's two groups. First, of course, the students. And we get 200 MBAs every year. They come from all over the world. They're all very driven and motivated to succeed. But at the same time, each one of them feels like there's a calling to do something different, something better, and something to have impact beyond just themselves, beyond just their organizations, but also their communities. It's always incredible to see how they come in, they grow through the year that they spend with us, and when they go out and become alums, and see how they write a different chapter in their lives. So that's the students. And the second group is definitely the staff and the faculty. Regardless of what they do, my team, they all come in with this strong sense of trying to make sure that our students succeed. It's a very core belief that all of them have. It's why they come to work every day. And they all go that extra mile to make sure that our students make the most of this 1 year. And it's always amazing to see maybe 5 years later when alums come back and alums remember the individuals who helped them through this really difficult or really intense period of their lives.
Well, I've mentioned how thoughtful you are as a commentator on business education. When somebody asks you, well, how do you like to describe Judge Business School? What do you like to tell them?
I say it's a community, and it is a community that acts as that bridge between business and the other disciplines that have an impact on business and societies. So this is a community that's driven to succeed, and it is also one that's very tightly knit and wants to see everyone else in that community succeed and have impact. It's easy to say, but it's something that's quite intangible when you think about it until that strength of community shows itself. And I'm just reminded of how the whole CJBS student, alumni, and staff community really came together during the pandemic as a great example. So obviously there were alums helping one another for those who found themselves laid off or their businesses suffering. But there was also alums who rallied around some of their classmates who were suffering from mental health pressures. And that's amazing to see all these WhatsApp groups emerging to help individual alums. So I think that community, that strength of that community is something that is incredibly powerful when you look at Cambridge Judge Business School.
It's interesting, isn't it, when the going gets tough and then you really see these characteristics as they emerge. You talked about such a supportive and committed staff and faculty, and then 200 students that are joining the MBA program from all over the world. That's a mirror perhaps of the Centre Court audience who themselves are thinking about their next steps and the MBA. What do you see as some of the key strengths, that really are distinct to the Judge MBA program?
So the first strength would be that tremendous diversity that we have in the student body. We have just over 200 students. They come from almost 50 different nationalities. But more importantly, each one brings a different perspective on the issues. we have people from different industries, the kind of mainstream traditional business school hunting grounds of finance, consulting, now technology. But we also have people from the military, the performing arts, sports, not-for-profit organizations coming in. And this means that your learning environment is incredibly rich, because while you may be covering the same topics as someone else, but the kinds of discussions and learning that you get within that classroom is so much richer as a result. And this is actually amplified when you think about how the business school is part of this larger university, where if you step out of the business school, you're going to meet students and faculty doing incredible research in areas like medicine, engineering, computer science, law, economics. So that kind of environment really helps our students, because I think increasingly in the world, true impact and value comes from people who can connect dots in different ways. And when people come here, of course they learn about business, but they learn about so many other things, that there's opportunities for people to connect the dots between different areas and create something new for themselves and for their companies or for their organizations.
With those diverse backgrounds, consulting, finance, technology, well represented, but equally, as you said, from the creative arts, from NGOs, everything that they're learning about business, broader perspectives, and its impact on society, but they're also learning a lot about themselves. So how much emphasis does Judge place within this intensive one-year program on areas of personal development and leadership?
So there's a lot of attention given on developing our students as effective managers and leaders. There's obviously a lot of time spent in the academic environment, looking at the journeys of leaders and business CEOs, chairmen, etc. But there's also a lot of introspection that we build into the program. We have a core class called Management Praxis, where everybody has to think about how they like to work as a team, in a team. What kind of team do they like? How do they turn around a team that's not working? And it's not just a theoretical exercise. We get them to apply what they learn through these group consulting projects, and we have 2 of them throughout the year. So this actually helps build up each student's own philosophy about how they themselves want to work in a team, how sometimes they want to maybe take on a leadership role, sometimes they might have to step back. How do they draw out the best from everyone around them? And towards the end of the program, the bar gets raised, so they are taught negotiations, and then you again apply that when they do that second group consulting project, and they have to think, now that we know how to work as a team, how do we persuade senior leaders of certain recommendations, right? How can we understand and empathize what's going on in that organization, so that we can come up with a recommendation that's both practical and also value.
Right. You get to see this journey, and of course with Charlotte and other colleagues in the admissions team, perhaps the introspection that they've done as they reflect on their own background, professional experience, academics, community engagement, and everything that they will bring to this Judge community. When you look at them as they arrive, and then through the praxis, through the consulting projects, when you look at them at the end, is it tangible, the sort of personal development that you see in them?
Most definitely. When I speak to the students on their last day here, right, and ask them to cast their mind back, they all say that they have been able to accomplish things that they didn't think they could do 365 days ago. And it's not about a sense of arrogance or hubris, but it's more about that realization that they have been able to do this. They've been able to break through their own mental barriers because they've been working in an effective team, whether that's in their study group, their project group, or in their wider class. So that's, I think, the most valuable kind of lesson that our students take with them, that they can achieve so much more if they think more about themselves as team members, as leaders, and help make sure that they can build that good supporting community that can help them and each and every one of them succeed.
Now, as you talk to them on that last day of the program, and they're about to go off into so many different exciting and diverse career opportunities beyond the Judge MBA, just your personal thoughts about perhaps 2 or 3 key leadership skills or broader skills that will serve them very well as they pursue the next steps of their career.
So most of our students are going to be going into, say, a senior mid-management role. Some of them will be going on to maybe building their own companies, etc. And I think the biggest qualities that they need to have are a deep curiosity, so that they're always thinking about what's going on in my team, with myself, what's going on in my industry, how are these different forces going to interact, and what's the impact? What can we do? I think that's one. I think the second one is an effective communication style. There's no one style for everybody. Each person has to develop that style for themselves, but they have to understand what is that style that would work for them in a particular situation, so that they can rally people, they can get people to think of or to think together and act together on a particular thing, on a particular course of action. So those 2 things about curiosity, communication, if you put those 2 together and you add it to our students' natural drive for action and success, I think that becomes a really strong mix.
Perhaps some applicants with the 1-year program think, oh, I already need to know which company I want to work for, the specific role that I want to fill. But you talk about curiosity, and during the program, I mean, you give them so many opportunities to explore different industries. I mean, a fallacy of the 1-year program, many are pursuing a sort of a triple jump of change. So again, perhaps advice as people are thinking about the right program for them, just how they will be able to explore during the Judge MBA the different career pathways that might follow.
I get this question a lot. A lot of students or candidates ask, what is some of the things that the best students have done in the past? Right? And I always answer this, that the best students are the ones who can strike a really good balance between being open to possibilities and being quite disciplined in terms of thinking what's not right for them and what are the things that they want to put more resources into, more of their own resources, that's time, energy, networking capacity to do. So it's true, the 1-year program is a really short period of time, but something like 97% of our students manage to get a job within 3 months. Almost 90% of them made one sort of career switch or another. And the way they did that was that mix of looking at different options, but not spreading themselves too thin, and being very disciplined to say, yes, maybe this area is hot now, but it's not really the right thing for me. I prefer to do something else. And thinking through, okay, if I want to make that switch, who are the people that I need to speak to? Are there projects? Are there internships I need to explore? And working with our careers team to say, for example, where there's a fair amount of that technical career skills that's involved, things like practicing interviews, getting someone to read through your cover letter. But a lot of the work with our careers team is about, again, that idea of introspection. Asking yourself, what are the career motivations that you have? Where are you right now in your own personal life? Are you ready to travel every 5 days in a week, for example? Right? Are you prepared to make that sacrifice? Or do you want to look for something else? And it's through that constant cycle of introspection, planning out your career search, going out doing networking, practicing your career skills, and then reevaluating that. I think our students have been able to make that kind of career transitions that all of them have made.
Right. And beyond the skills of fantastic network, I think what you've also described, it's this gift, this framework of support to be open, to be curious, as you've said, but also then the discipline, and as you then explore these opportunities and what really connects and matters to you. We started the discussion, you talked about 200 students that arrive from all around the world every year, more than 50 nationalities. So what is it about that diversity that is so valuable in the business school experience? And what are you doing at Judge, to continue to encourage that level of diversity, not just at sort of gender, but any underrepresented minority?
So diversity is very important in our business school. Firstly, we're a global business school, so we want to have people from different regions, different nationalities, because many of our students are going to be embarking on global careers, and they need to know that what works in America is not going to play out the same way in Southeast Asia or India, and vice versa, right? So we want an environment where people come in, they learn about different regions, different cultures, and they go out having an appreciation that no matter where they go, there is something that they can learn from that particular area, right? Or from another region, that they don't know it all. We want to encourage or cultivate that sense of humility in our students. In terms of the diversity of the cohort, you mentioned how I always say we're not in the business of collecting passports. So I'm not too concerned about how many nationalities there are. I'm more concerned with people coming from different parts of society who bring different perspectives to business. So that's why we want to have people from different sectors. And in terms of the focus of our student of building that class, last year we almost reached 50% in terms of gender of women students, percentage of women students. We really want to hit that 50% and have gender parity. We're also thinking of how to reach out to underrepresented communities. And that I think is it's not an easy task for many top business schools, because with the kinds of resources in top business schools now, the fees are at a certain level. And it is, unless, we can get more donation, we do get donations, etc., but it's difficult in a way to get a lot of people from underrepresented communities coming in. However, that's one area that we are focused on. And I can talk a bit about, in particular, what underrepresented communities mean for me when I'm thinking about in the next few years building the class. Ironically, it is about looking, while we're a global business school, we're trying to look a bit more closer to home when we think about underrepresented communities. So more than 90% of our students come from outside the UK. So the UK percentage is one where we want to increase. And in particular, we want to look at underrepresented communities in UK business. So people from Black, South Asian, Northern, working class, white backgrounds. These are areas that the university has actually been a lot more advanced than the business school. They've really done a lot in terms of getting started on the undergraduate level. Right. And for us, it's still quite new. It is something that we want. I've been speaking with our dean before about thinking which are partners that we can use to reach out to these communities. And it's going to take a long time, but it is something that we really want to do. We're not going to see the results for quite a number of years, but I think it behooves us, right, as a school in the UK, to also develop the business society, the business communities here in the UK.
Right. And as you said, it's not just counting passports. Diversity can be looked at in so many different dimensions of background and experience. The next step for any individual to then, feel that it's the right sort of inclusive environment for them. Clearly people seek out the global perspective that Judge offers, but equally to feel, perhaps a UK applicant, that they will fit in this group. So how do you then nurture and foster a level of inclusion?
We do that in several ways through the year. Obviously, through study groups where people are put together from different backgrounds. We have classes on that helps students appreciate different cultures, for example. Over the last few years, we've also had workshops to help students understand how do you create a more inclusive environment in your teams. And I personally feel that this skill of creating an inclusive environment, it's applicable regardless of your own race, religion, or gender. Because if the idea is you want to get the best out of everyone, then even if your room is everybody is the same gender, same race, ethnicity, or nationality, there'll always be some people who are left out of the conversation for whatever reason. So this is a key skill which we want our students to have, that idea of how do you get everybody in the conversation, that skill of thinking who's not in the room, how do we bring that voice in, how do we create a space where everybody can really give off their best and be able to empathize and think about all these different perspectives in a constructive way. So that's how we're trying to create that sense of inclusion and that skill of creating inclusion, which hopefully our students can then bring forth when they graduate.
You referenced earlier the pandemic and witnessing such a strong level of solidarity, and given everybody's different situation with the lockdown, it was also an opportunity to look at online learning or sort of at distance given those conditions. But as you walk through the corridors, as you step into the lecture halls at Judge or the classrooms and the buzz that you hear from those conversations, where do you see graduate management education evolving in the coming years to still really draw from that face-to-face interaction that I'm sure you must see the remarkable benefits that brings?
Matt, you and I have been working in this industry for quite a long time. You longer than I have, but I don't know how you feel, but I find that the core tenets of graduate business have been incredibly resilient, right? If you think over the last 10 years, even before the pandemic, there was MOOCs, there was all these ideas about how we won't need to have that face-to-face education. But what we have found is that people, both faculty, staff, and students, really treasure that face-to-face interaction, that idea of coming into a classroom, learning from one another, engaging with one another. So I think that aspect of being in a class, in a physical classroom, is very important, and it'll still be a core driver for many top business schools. Now, what we also see is that in addition to that, people want to have, say, digital delivery of certain aspects of education. So whether that be pre-recorded videos, online discussions, forums, which in a way we already were starting to do before the pandemic, and the pandemic accelerated that transition. But it's about trying to get that balance, right, between the in-person time and understanding what parts of the education could be best done in a digital format, where students can then access it at their own pace, at their own time. Now, obviously, for us on the full-time MBA, the balance is very much towards the in-person side of things. But increasingly, we see on the MBA, in the business school, we have other programs that are more part-time, and many business schools are also looking to that. Again, where the balance then becomes more thinking more of the education is done between classes, where people are interacting all over the world and then coming together for maybe a weekend, right? So I think this is where the different models of graduate business will evolve, and the shiny bells and whistles might be different, but the central core, I think, is going to be there. And I'll leave you with the other part is that I think the pandemic, one great thing about, well, the pandemic was not a great thing, but one great outcome of it was this increasing acceptance of online communication, just like what we're doing now. So this gives business schools like us almost that permission to roll out more online learning, especially for our alums, right? Yeah. So that now I think our alums are more accepting of let's say, jumping on a YouTube live stream or LinkedIn live stream or something like a Zoom call where they can learn from faculty, and they don't expect all the time that the faculty will travel halfway around the world to host a session. Yeah. Right? They can see the value in that.
Yeah. You talked about resilience and an observation, whether you're having the conversation on the last day of the program, when I talk to Judge MBA students 3 years, 10 years later, whether they use terms like transformational, very often some of the intangible rewards, they've gone on to very successful careers, and the ROI that has brought, but so often it's on a personal level of this remarkable experience that really started with a journey that they shared with their 199 other classmates. So I echo the resilience that I think we both witness, certainly at world-class institutions like Judge. So as we think about our Centre Court readers and their next steps, you've been approached by so many, looking for the right business school, the right program for them. What is your advice as they look to pursue an MBA?
Take your time, right? Do your research. And I know increasingly people do research through desktop research, Google, going on discussion forums, going on poets and quants, coming to a place like Centre Court, right? Where you can get, I think, what I like to call a smell of the place, right? You get a feel for the things that make that school or particular program tick. Speak to people in the admissions team, speak to alums. And in this day and age, it's so easy to find alums on LinkedIn and, just reach out, find out more about what the environment of the school is like. And in the end, make your own decision about which is the right fit for you. Yeah? And I think that is sort of the advice that's the advice I would give for people who are at that consideration stage, right? Research, consideration stage. Once you've decided and you start the MBA, I think the other advice I would give is you have to learn to roll with the punches a bit, because things will never work out as you thought they would or as the brochure says, right? There will be ups, there'll be downs, and whichever school you go to, I'm sure that there's a lot of supporting infrastructure to help you pick yourselves up and carry on. But you can't go in thinking it's going to be a linear process, right? I'm going to just sail through. It's not going to be like that. But if you can, again, exhibit that resilience, you'll come out, you will get the outcome you want, and you'll come out much better for it.
Yeah. Perhaps John and the team at Poets and Quants in a year or two will highlight the candidate that applied to business school doing all of their research on a wearable device and maybe even dictating their applications into Siri on their iPhones. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but yes, your point about taking the time and connecting with the institutions, the conversations with students and alums that I think are so enlightening and valuable, but it also includes individuals like you. I love the fact, Conrad, that in a world-class institution, you continue to talk about it being a work in progress. The things that you're now looking to sort of push new boundaries, and how we can refine these elements of the program. I think it's so much to your credit to not rest on the laurels and always be thinking about how you can improve the experience of the Cambridge Judge MBA. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to Centre Court each year. Thank you for a great session, which I think for our viewers will be a first step reaching out to your team and finding out more about the Judge MBA. Thank you very much indeed.